new studio. I've got these pieces here that I'm trying to effectively change. Apparently my device is having a conniption fit, so we'll do that. There. And we'll focus in right about there. So what we're doing right now is putting in some more opacity in this general area here. I'm going to put maybe just 2 drops there and just mix it on canvas rather. It is past my bedtime. And I will mix this. There we go. Okay. Now I need a spacer to elevate this and bring this up a little bit, just so I can get rid of this downward fall here. I don't want that at all. So I'm trying to keep all the pigment oriented right in here. And it wants to keep falling. It wants to keep going this way. So what I'm going to do is just gently massage this back, because what I'm trying to do is get rid of this canvas texture in this general area. And it's probably going to take, I'd say somewhere around the 10 to 15 layer amount to get rid of that. But as it sort of flows into this area, what I'm looking for is a mixture of maybe a Mars Black and a Sapphire, and just work that, from here naturally, a bit of an overlayer and into here, and then sort of do past layers with the titanium buff over top of it, in between it, however you want to put it. But yeah, it's a long, arduous process to make this look as natural as possible, to make it look like these 2 pigments just happened to bump into each other and create this effect. So I will take all of these recycled paper towels and just dab this back, because I don't want this to be spilled down into this area. I want it to be stuck into this area here, basically. So and like I said, probably another 10 to 15 layers, just different viscosities, mostly pretty thin in this area here. Going back and forth. This was actually a piece that I saved. It had started to break and crack on its face in a couple areas. You can almost see a piece here where it started to break due to crazy fluctuations in humidity in my New York studio. And I had left this one alone for a good 6 months at that point, and it started to crack in about 3 different spots. This is the only spot you can see offhand. Everything else I made a pretty good seamless fix, and then I covered it over with this titanium buff. And you can see all of these layers here. I'll zoom in super close. So this texture you see right here with all this hyper closeness is what I'm trying to get rid of, actually, at a distance. I don't want someone to be able to see that. I want this to look like a sort of weird alien landscape, is probably the best way I can describe it. And so, like I said, I get this one area sorted. I then blend it softly into this area, which I'm thinking a Mars Black Sapphire mixture. And then this red area here, I'll have to blend it through ever so slightly. It's just the most deft, small layers interwoven with the other layers. And imagine sort of working with watercolors, but trying to layer watercolors, and the watercolors have a bit of a conflict in terms of they don't want to dry the same way twice. So that's essentially what I deal with here. I harness entropy and I move it around, and with great practice and patience and all that jazz, it seems to work. So, once this dries here, I'll let this dry for probably a day or so, just to make sure it's really and truly dry. The humidity currently in the studio is about 62%, which is not great. I'm trying to get some form of dehumidifier so that, excuse me, things can dry much quicker. And also, my paperwork is not in trouble, so to speak. But this area specifically, I want to make sure this is dry before I start working into that, and it's not. So, but with this titanium buff here, I will kind of just work it in with different layers, following the contours of the paint texture that I've created. And this is a texture here, that's a texture there. There's more subtle textures over here in the red, which may be hard to make out with the camera. But that's going to be the general plan. It's mostly finished in the periphery here, outside of the camera lens. But this area, once I get that blended, it'll work slightly into this area up here, which if I move the camera, you can see close up right in there. Yeah, the interplay of that is very sort of skeletal almost. And it's one of those situations where, I start this with a very simple concept of just putting a couple colors on the canvas. And then it becomes very complex insofar as how things are interwoven and what I do to make these layers play well with each other. Like this pink, let's see. This is the light magenta that I'm using at the moment with the titanium buff right there. And with these two colors combining, the magenta has these little pops. It's pretty hard to see because, see if I can get close to what I'm trying to illustrate here. There is, there. Okay. Here you can see this natural sort of almost spotted concentration. The paint itself, just through entropy, through not blending it completely or fluidly, just sort of finds these little tiny pockets of concentration amidst the sea of otherwise, semi-mixed pink and white, and that creates this interplay, which I'm trying to work off of. So again, we'll work this back, take this red, filter it out, blend it in, probably 3-4 days work, and then it should be good. And then I can start blending in all the different connection points. This is solid, so I don't need to worry about that, but this area is a connection point here where I can start working in this color, this sort of darkened color, and then work in sort of this orangish red here and there. I have a question. What is this? This is an abstract painting. It is probably something of the order of, I'd say, 75, 78 layers, give or take. As I mentioned earlier in this live show, this is a painting I rescued because it started to actually break apart with the extreme humidity in my New York apartment / studio. So I fixed a couple of different major cracks in the face of this, and I'm just going about putting in some layering here in this piece, this general area, to finalize. Once I get that situated, I probably have another, I don't know, 3-4 days work. And then it becomes the next episode on Calm and Colors, and you can watch the whole thing. Although, since I started on this, I should say I started filming on this almost after it was done. After it started having facial issues, so to speak. This episode will probably be pretty quick. So, for those of you who only have about 6 minutes to spare, this episode will be for you. But to show more of the entirety of the painting, there, and goes that way. And I'll try to just pan over the entirety of it. Wonder if this will help at all. Okay. So I'll let this dry right in that area again, and I'll come back to it tomorrow, see how it sits, see what other things I need to do for it. But that's all she wrote for tonight. Gotta wake up tomorrow at 5:45 in the morning. Thank you to the boys' school. So that's a bit of a hard adjustment at the moment. So a couple last touches and then early to bed, which is odd for me, but nonetheless. Thanks for watching. I'm currently working on episode 5, so that will be out as soon as possible. And what you're looking at is episode 6, by the by. Episode 7 is off screen to my right, so that'll be out as soon as possible because most of these are almost done. So ideally I can get episode 5 cut, published, etc. in the next 2 weeks or so. Episode 6 2 weeks thereafter, episode 7 2 weeks thereafter, so forth and so on. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned.